Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle, be your host once again. Please hit our subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, ring that sucker so you can always hear when we got new upcoming and updated videos coming out, even though pretty much right now we're Mondays, right? Every Monday afternoon. But go down to the About section, hit and order up a Legend of the Superstition Mountains, a Dutch Hunter Rendezvous t-shirt, black, gray, long sleeve, short sleeve. We don't really make anything off of it. What little we do, we just pick up some extra shirts and we just give those away. So it's kind of a very cool thing. We tried to keep the cost down, no inventory. So getting into today's subject. Today's subject is going to be a little disappointing for people, but it'll be kind of that, oh, you're just teasing us kind of thing. And one of the things that people always want to know is kind of, what do you guys do when they run into us? And we kind of like shy away from some of it, what's going on currently. One of the problems is like when we were doing the DeGrazia stuff, we were getting a lot of feedback and bounce back from people because people knew what we were doing and the interpretation. We were talking to a lot of people who had searched for them, and we were taking their information, their search information, and utilizing it with our interpretations. What we found out was when we started to decipher things, we found that Bob Ward was actually far more clever than we wanted to give him credit for, because some things were so simple you just almost couldn't approach it, and other things were extremely complicated, and it was a great mixture which kept you off balance at solving things. So some things were so obvious right there that we could sit there in front of it and not even realize we were working our way crazy around it trying to interpret it. So once we broke things and kind of worked some things out, we went to other people and talked to them, and then the word stretched out, and there was actually a threat too that we didn't take too serious. But the idea was a lot of people were paying attention, and we noticed there was more activity in the area because of what we were doing. And then we had to be even more cautious because at that time the videos were coming out and it was the legend material, and people were seeing the videos and we were still working and operating in the area. Now, of course, the fire, the flood, and the closure of Fish Creek Hill and everything changed all that. But it's something we always have to keep in the back of our mind. So like when Randy Wright and I are out by Bluff Springs Mountain and we were climbing up a very narrow canyon crevice area, and I pointed out to him, work over here, and we were looking for some openings in the rocks, some fissures or like volcanic vents that might have been concealed or covered over with some rocks. So we're moving rocks and stuff, and there was an area I just looked, and Randy could kind of see it from where he was standing, but I said, no, go over there and check it out. He got there, and next thing I know is pitching through the air. I don't think he really thought about it. It's a very cool find. He found a knife. It had a tip broken off. The wood had basically just rotted out of it. There was no wood left to the handle, but it was dated, stamped 1910. And he found it was a big piece of rusty knife. Of course, he threw it. I jumped out of the way, and then I picked it up and was like, oh, very cool find. Randy found a piece of rock. It was about this big, and when he turned it over, it looked like kind of a Wizard of Oz, like Crystal City. All the crystals were shooting up like this out of it. It was just incredible looking, and he put that in his pack. I got the knife. We never ran into what we did, but telling you about that area and what we were looking for and what was happening wasn't too big of a deal if we would have been doing this back then, because people would have known we were in the area, but it's such a large scale area, it wouldn't have been anything specific. So saying we were up around Bluff Springs or going up and down the cliffs, and that was a lot of tedious work, because we're talking about a mile stretch from top to bottom, and we were working every crack and crevice and working along ledges and 10, 15 feet apart from each other and checking every nook and cranny, pushing every boulder over we could. We knew a certain section of that slice of that mountain like the backs of our hands. We knew every little rock and where it was in the bush and stuff because of how meticulous we were about the work. But the problem comes with Frank and myself is we find we go into places, and once people kind of get the idea, people they want to do their Google Earth, they want to figure it out, then people want to talk about it, people share, and next thing we know is we got people in the area. So In this case, it's something I want to talk about, but I can't talk about the area. I can't talk about what we're doing. I can talk that Frank and myself and Trevor were out there, and it's a very, very cool story. We have video of it, but no one's going to see the video for some time right now. Pardon the gap there, because we had a ghost that showed up and decided to open the door while I was talking. So sometimes the intrusion can be problematic, not just for the treasure if you're looking for a lost mine or something else, but the history and what we're trying to do. People want to try to get involved, or people just come into the area, and it kind of messes things up overall. This is a case where it's something very cool, and I think everyone's going to understand why we don't want anybody where we're at. Now, we've been out pretty steadily now since probably late November, sometime in November, all the way through, and it's March. So we've been out pretty consistently. I think I worked up, I'm easily in the double digits in the mountains so far this year, and I'm just continuing to add to and add to. And that's great. We're getting tons of footage. There's a number of different projects going on. And in this case, we were out, and we were working an area that we were working on the history and working some stuff up. And I can't remember exactly what it was we were looking for, but Frank went off, Trevor was off with the camera kind of filming, and I was on my own, and we were just the three of us split up. And actually we had another friend with us. We had Kim Johnson with us. So Kim Johnson was with us, so there was the four of us. So we're all four just kind of out there and looking around and kind of looking over the area and stuff. And sometimes a lot of instances like that is we're gritting it out and everybody's kind of working an area, and we're looking at cacti, we're looking at trees, we're looking at things that might have markings on them. It's funny how obvious you'll miss things. You'll look at a tree branch and there'll be a triangle cut into the tree branch. You don't know what it means, whatever, but we like to document it, look at it, and kind of make sure everybody's aware of this. So we look around and we find numbers on the cacti or the trees sometimes. And we don't know the definitive age of these things, but again, we're just trying to put together a story for everyone. So as we're working in the area and kind of looking over this and knowing some of the history and some different things about it, and just having a good time, and that was part of it, was when we go out, we're just trying to enjoy ourselves and have a good time, because if nothing else, that's part of that. And then I take all the photographs, Trevor will bring the film footage in. If it's something we can put towards Chasing Legends, which we will have 12 episodes of that and continue and be moving forward, that's great. If it's not something that fits with it necessarily, that's fine. We could use it somewhere else. So in this instance, I'm walking along and I'm finding a couple things, but they're nothing. You know, it's just kind of, it's like, you know, something out of place that maybe doesn't make sense. We always find a little of something, and we're going along, and I looked down, and I thought it was funny, and I told Trevor, get over here, because I found treasure finally. So Trevor works his way around and comes over to me, and he's like, what's up? And I'm like, looking down, and I pointed down, and I said, I found treasure. I said, let's get this on film, because I thought it was going to be funny, because it looked like a quarter or a slug of some sort sticking out of the ground. So I reach down, I pick it up, and I hold it up, and I start wiping it off, and I figure it's a quarter, okay? It might be 20, 30 years old, but I figure it's a quarter. And what it was a quarter. But it was a very, very old quarter. And I'm sure Trevor will get a snapshot or something of this up close, but it was a very old quarter, and it was kind of sticking up, kind of partially kind of sticking out of the ground, and I only could see part of it, so I just saw the silver part. Thought, wow, that's cool. And so I pick it up, and I realize, man, what the heck? And I looked at him, and we're looking at each other, and I'm looking down, and now suddenly I just decide to drop to my knees and start working my hands through the dirt. Now, always remember, in Arizona, if you live back east and you're metal detecting and doing stuff, you dig, you know, you got the Oak Island guys, they find something and they dig down like a foot and they turn it over and they use the pinpointer and all that. Well, in Arizona and the Southwest and the deserts, what a tendency to happen is everything keeps coming uncovered and coming to the surface. So something will be there, it can be buried, but it always, the erosion in the areas with the washes and stuff, everything comes to the surface. So a lot of times I tell people, good rainfalls in areas, that's when you're going to find monos mutades, you're going to find arrowheads, you're going to find, you don't need a metal detector. Sometimes just walk and keep your eyes on the ground. So in this case, that's what happened, is I was just looking at the ground, just kind of slowly going across. So I find this, and now I drop down and I'm taking my hands and I'm trying to skim through the dirt. And the next thing I come up with is a silver dollar. And Trevor's like, I think Trevor actually swore, because it was very cool. And I realized the condition of them, which they're old, they got, they got some staining on them. But I realize also that they've been in something, they've been clean and whatnot. So I was kind of like, man, this is, super cool. And my mind's buzzing, but now I'm starting to kind of work my hands through, and my mind's trying to think of what has I got. And then I start hitting pieces. I yell at Frank, get over here. I think Kim came running over. And I'm taking my hands and trying to sift. And I yelled at him, grab the pinpointer. So we didn't have any metal detectors with us, so I said, grab the pinpointer. So Frank's grabbing the pinpointer. I'm putting my hands through sifting, and I'm hitting pieces of glass. So my mind's capturing all this as I think, now I got to watch out for glass. And there was a little small piece of metal, something that seemed to be, it was a little kind of curved metal piece. So I was like, I wasn't sure what it was, and I was throwing these things aside, still sifting because I want the coins. So I go through. What I came up with was this quarter, and not one, not two, not three, but 4 silver dollars in a space of probably about 5 minutes. So Frank then came up with, I think, he came up, I think, with a quarter, some $50 pieces, and then I gave him one. I actually had another silver dollar, and I gave him one because he didn't find a silver dollar. So that was that problem. I felt he kind of looked like, the kid that gets the short end of the stick. He kind of looked at me funny, and I was like, didn't you get a silver dollar? And I was looking, and he didn't. And I thought, well, it was only fair, because he came over with the pinpointer. He got everything he found with the pinpointer. I got what I originally did with sifting. Now, it was in an area, probably about this area, this big. There were some pieces, shards of glass and pieces. What our thinking is that someone had a coin collection, since they were all older coins, anywhere from the 1890s, I think, into the early 1900s. It was probably an old coin collection of someone's that back in the day, they would put them in jars and stuff. And I've told stories about this kind of stuff. And probably it got broken at one point or another, and when the dirt was transferred, or maybe someone found them, and when that happened, this part of it, these few coins and some of this glass, ended up in something that was thrown aside. And it was very, very cool. Now, obviously, we wanted to continue to search. We didn't find anything else in the area. We gridded it off. We wanted to continue, and we went back again and searched the area very, very meticulously. Found nothing else. Kim went back, metal detected, and checked the area. Did not find anything, which I feel disappointing for him, because we didn't give him any coins. Sorry, Kim. I found them. We wouldn't have found anything if I hadn't found what I thought was a quarter. Which is one of those things, is just sometimes when you see something, pick it up. I found this very old penny, and I think it was an 1870s, 1880s penny in Fish Creek once. And I actually had a metal detector, and it was for unexplained, unexplored, and we were going along detecting, and the idea was to detect for any kind of metals or anything. So we were looking for anything iron, this and that, and we were talking. It was about the time we were doing that panning shoot during that time. And I don't think any of the metal detecting, any of that made the show. But when we filmed it, we were walking along, and the metal detector went off, and we kind of were like, whoa, what the hell's that? So, and it kind of gave a weird little ping. So I went down to check what it was, and we kept sifting and couldn't find anything. It was a lot of leaves, but it was down kind of on the edge of the wash in this groove, and I dug around it. It was an old penny. So, and I think, I couldn't tell you how old it is, because I forgot what the age and date was on it, because I actually gave it to either Justin Fernall or Emiliano, or the producer at the time. I said, that's actually cool, so if you guys probably going to want shots of that. And I said, it's no huge value to me. I've found things like this before. And always, I liked the film crews to get mementos. It's very cool for people to get certain things from the shows they worked on with the people they worked on. Maybe is why I get so many callbacks, because I always like those guys to leave the superstitions with some memory, something I believe the producer on Unexplored never wore a hat or anything. He was always out there filming in the sun and stuff. And I knew they were traveling the world. They were going to go over to, I believe, Europe, might be in Africa and something. So I had my scarf, my hood scarf, and I gave that to him to make sure he shields his head and keeps his head out of the sun. But you always want to do gifts, and I gave that one up. Should have done something for Kim. Sorry, Kim. I know you watch these. Bummer. Okay. I'm over it. Anyways, it's a very cool thing, though, because that's what happens. And I've managed. I still don't think this as cool as this was, because I think the total was, I think it was $5 silver, a few quarters, and a couple 50-cent pieces, which is very, very cool. And you know, value for what they were, looking them up. Nothing super rare. There was nothing super but it was probably $200-300 worth of coins we made out of that. As cool as that was, I still think when Frank found the silver dollar that had been melted by the Fish Creek Lodge fire when he was metal detecting over there, I still think that is a much cooler find. I think the pocket watch I found, which probably doesn't have the same value as this, that was from the 1880s, I still think that has a cooler value and find, because sometimes it's the memory of the place and some history. We don't know where this all came from. We will continue to investigate. But I always want people to understand is like, one, we're not trying to hide anything because we want to thoroughly go through it. We filmed it. We want to be able to show everyone the film. We want to then talk about the history and what we were looking for at the time and how this kind of suddenly came into it. It was very cool. We can't even at this point in time now put anyone's name or any trace on it because the age of the coins seems to precede anything that we thought was happening in the area. So we don't know. It could have been some guy who was prospecting him back in there in the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, preceding anything that else we knew of in the area, and he might have been stashing his coins, you know? So for all we know stories of some other people that did this stuff. Bob Ward was infamous for this, but we heard it was around his cabin and we weren't in that area. So how far could have he traveled in the mountains? Or was this a general thing in the prospectors in the mountains that many of them did this? You never know. So we probably will never know exactly who is attached to this. We will continue to search the area. And we will always continue to look at the history of that because that's always interesting and important too. But that was something I wanted to share this week. It wasn't one of the longest stories. It wasn't one of the coolest personal stories. But I thought it was very nice. So hopefully Trevor will get a few close-ups of these and people will be able to look at these and see. Sometimes, you know, you're without a metal detector and just everything works out. Everything goes in your favor and it works out and it's very, very cool. And you come home and you just feel good. And I will tell you, and Trevor could tell you, I was pumped. I was pumped in the truck because it kept resurging through me of how cool it was that I found this. Now I realize how much work, and I've actually done more research and tried to look into the area more. But at the time, and especially when I was finding them, I was suddenly getting to that moment where, like, is there going to be 200, 300, 400 of these coming up? Are me and Frank leaving here today going, mother, oh wow. And I had that moment where it wasn't greed, it was just like this totally super cool thing, that big payoff moment. But then soon as that was over, within 24 hours, I was back into the history of it because I wanted to know whose was it, where did it come from, how did this happen. So it goes into the collection that doesn't get sold, the knife I still have, the pocket watch, these type of things. It's just one of the coolest moments. I got to have a shadow box of those coolest moments because there's always a story to go with them. And I don't want to get rid of them because I prefer the story and having them and showing somebody and saying, this is what happens once in a while. Something very cool, and when I can find the backstory to them, if I do, make it even cooler. So thanks for joining us today on Chasing Legends. Remember, the 15th of March, the Ides of March, the Treasure Hunter of the Year Awards at the Mammoth Saloon. So we'll be there honoring some guests this year, and it's a good crowd. Kind of a really great time we have out there and all. We'll probably put that together. The people that are inducted and the people that receive awards, we'll probably put something together and use that for some Chasing Legends of just the segments of those people to kind of present them out there and let people know who they are and why they receive these awards and all that. But until then, until another time, another place, another channel, I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not. And this was Chasing Legends. Thank you and take care.